My name is Rashelle Garcia. I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas on March 25, 1999. My parents are Arturo Garcia Sanchez. My dad was born in Jicotenca, Tamaulipas in Mexico, and my mom was born in Houston, Texas. Her name is Veronica Avina. They met at one of my mom's family parties in Matamoros at the ages of 17 and 18 in the year 1991. My mom had moved down to Brownsville with my grandparents, and my dad had been living in Matamoros. They soon sparked up a relationship, and my mom would cross over every weekend to see him. In 1992, my mom came to find out that she was pregnant, and on January 30th, 1993, she had her first son and my only brother named Eric. Luckily, my brother was able to be born in the U.S., even though my parents had been living in Mexico at the time. For the first 6 months of my brother's life, he would be living in Matamoros. Then in June of the same year, my parents decided to move to Houston in order for my dad to find a better job, which meant my dad had to use his border crossing card that was issued for a tourist to be eligible to stay for 2 weeks, but my dad had overstayed, which now made him an illegal. From 1993 to 1995, they lived in Houston as my dad worked as a plumber. In 1995, my parents made another risky decision to move back to Matamoros due to the fact they didn't want to be so far from their families. In 1998, my mom was pregnant again, then on March of 1999, I was born. Just like my brother, I was able to be born in Brownsville as well, as I had lived in Matamoros for the first 6 months of my life. My parents were seeing the neighborhood kids getting involved with drugs and realized that we would have a better life if we just lived in the United States. In September of 1999, my parents crossed over to Brownsville. My dad used his border crossing card once again, but soon after he filed his papers in order to become a resident. My dad officially became a resident in 2001 and was no longer labeled an illegal. I recall being a child and going with my dad to the stores and having to translate whenever people would talk to him in English. For some weird reason, people automatically assumed that he knew English, but they would talk to him in English and he would give me a blank stare, and I would translate to him in Spanish to tell him what they were trying to talk to him about. But now my dad understands English way more and doesn't need help translating. Growing up, I had to deal with my mom working an 8 to 5 job while my dad would work out of town, such as in Corpus Christi, Texas, as a welder. I would then be taken care of by my grandparents until my mom would get out from work. I would like to consider my grandma as my second mom, as she's the main person who raised me. I wouldn't be the person I am today without her. For years, it was the same routine of being with my grandparents all the time, seeing my mom only till after 5 p.m., and my dad strictly on the weekends. If it weren't for my parents deciding to move here, I don't know where I would be today, and thanks to my grandmother and my grandfather for teaching me what it is to be a Mexican and teaching me all there is about the Mexican food and the culture, and for letting me embrace being a Latina.